Hello? All right, welcome to Deploying System Center 2012 Configuration Manager SP1 with Windows Intune. I am Arun Ramakrishnan. I'm a service engineer at Microsoft, and I service Microsoft IT, provide a configuration manager-based service to them. With me, I have Karthik.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karthik Jaivel. I'm a service engineer in Microsoft, working with Arun Ramakrishnan.
So our objective today is to share our experiences with the unified device management, the combination of Config Manager SP1 and Windows Intune. We proof of concepted this back in November before the product was RTM'd, and we want to share our learnings, because it's a paradigm shift even for us to adopt the bring your own device culture. So we want to share our experiences and hope that you make it easier for you to learn from them, and share how easy it is with the combination of Config Manager and Intune to manage users' devices, deploy applications to them, deploy policies to them, so that you're having your users productive and at the same time you're maintaining your corporate security and your policies. So who's this session designed for? Show of hands, how many folks in the room work with Config Manager? Wow, it's almost 90%, or 99%. So you guys already have most of what we require. You're already familiar with Config Manager, and how many folks are familiar with Windows Intune? That's about 50%. That's good. So what we're going to walk you through is setting up the connector, and what information, how we did it, and how it's useful for you, what you can do in your environment, setting up the connector between Config Manager and Intune, the process for distributing applications and policies to Windows Phone 8 and RT devices specifically, and reporting on, how can you report on how users are licensed, how you can report on the devices that are installing LOB applications and are accessing your corporate environment. So with this, let's talk about what our goals were. When we first started this project, we had a specific set of goals in mind. So how many folks work on having to install servers in the data center for their Config Manager environment? Not a whole lot. I see 4 or 5 hands. So traditionally, when you have a non-domain joined device and you want it to speak to a Config Manager or any other role, you have to have a server in the DMZ environment of your data center. And you have to, at least I can speak from experience, it's quite a challenge at Microsoft. In order to get a server stood up in the DMZ, you have to, obviously the server procurement is one thing, but then you have to work with your security team to ensure you're only opening up the right firewall ports. You have to have a review done of the code to make sure you're not compromising anything from the corporate standpoint. So there's a significant investment required in that side, and that was one of our goals. We want to avoid doing any additional infrastructure or any complex networking design. We wanted to make our users productive, be able to deploy LOB applications to them, and at the same time be able to safeguard our corporate data, be able to enforce policies if required on these devices so that we're compliant with our security team's requirement. Obviously, we want to manage with so many new devices, smartphones being the way of the future. We want to be able to manage the Windows Phone 8 devices, the Windows RT devices, and even the heterogeneous devices. And at the same time, we want to make sure that our administrator's life doesn't become difficult. Our administrator doesn't have to log into 2 portals now to manage, one portal or the Config Manager console to manage PCs, and a Windows Intune portal to manage devices. We wanted them to have a single pane of administration. And our solution was System Center 2012 and Windows Intune. And with this, we're able to natively manage. We get everything that we asked for. We were able to natively manage the modern devices such as Windows Phone 8, iOS devices, the ability to provide users LOB apps at the same time, enforce policies if required for to ensure that the data is secure, being able to have our users connect from anywhere they want. They can connect from a coffee shop if they want from their 3G network and still be productive. And at the same time, from my perspective, it was a big relief that I don't have to go in and buy another server. I don't have to deal with our security team or our data center team to open up any firewall ports. It was that simple. So from a device scope perspective, because we're Microsoft, obviously our first preference is we have to manage the Windows 8 PCs and the Windows 8 devices, namely the Windows 8 RT and Windows Phone 8 devices. And we had some challenges for the heterogeneous devices, such as the iOS devices, the iPhones, the iPads, and the Android devices. Specifically because of last year, because Windows 8 RTM'd, we saw a surge of Windows Phone 8 and Windows RT in our environment. And from an application development standpoint, because we're Microsoft, most of our developers, their first preference is for developing applications for these platforms. So we had a limited set of applications for iOS devices and a complete lack of LOB applications for Android devices. And because of this reason, we did some limited testing on iOS devices, and we left Android out of scope. So in this session, we're primarily going to focus on Windows Phone 8 and Windows RT and share our experiences with managing those devices, the user devices. So I'm just going to walk through the console wizard, what is the administrative experience for setting up a connector, and then we'll go into what are some of the prerequisites required to even set this up. So the first step that an administrator would have to do is go into the administrative console, go to the administration tab, and they can create a new Windows Intune subscription. The subscription would ask them for a live ID, which has to be either an Intune. This ID has to be either an Intune tenant admin or a service admin in the Intune environment in order for them to sign it up. Then the checkbox that you see over here, let me see, I don't have it, can zoom it here. Okay, so the checkbox that you see over here, it says essentially allow config manager to be the authority to manage devices. Even though that checkbox is there, that isn't really an optional thing. You have to check it in order to move forward in the wizard. You have to provide a user collection for users, which set of users you want to be able to enroll their devices. And the company name is pretty much self-explanatory. The config manager site code here is a primary site code. It has to be a primary site code for which you want info, for where your devices need to report on and where they will show up in the database to where they're reporting to. Selecting which platforms you want to support, that is pretty self-explanatory as well. There are prerequisites for each of them. For iOS, you need an Apple push notification certificate, and the wizard actually gives you a link to generate a request form, a request file that you can later log into Apple's portal and upload this request file, and it will give you the ability then to download what's called an Apple push notification certificate, and then you'll have to import that Apple push notification certificate over here in order to be able to manage iOS devices. From a Windows Phone 8 perspective, you need a code signing certificate, and you need to create a application deployment for the the company portal, and you'll point the company portal over here. And we'll cover some in more detail, what our experiences were with getting some of these prerequisites and what specifically you as an IT pro need to know in order to enable unified device management in your environment. So for Windows RT, the only prerequisites are the code signing certificate and a side loading key. The side loading key is not a mandatory step right now. You can go in and enable this at a later point in time if you wanted to. One more thing before you're off and running is you need to add a Windows Intune connector role on the site where you're doing this. So one thing I should have probably brought up much earlier, the Intune subscription and the connector role needs to be set up on the topmost node in your hierarchy. So if you have a flat hierarchy, you would set it up on the primary site. If you had a multi-tier hierarchy, then it has to be set up on the central administrative site. But having said that, like the device, the previous screenshot where we talked about which config manager site or which config manager site devices need to be assigned to, this needs to be a valid primary site with clients being assigned to it. So let's talk a little more about the prerequisites for a connector setup. Where we want to share like what we did specifically and what is the key takeaway for you from this setting it up in your environment. So first step, we worked with the Microsoft Online Directory Services team to provision the Microsoft IT tenant in Intune. So show of hands, how many are familiar with Microsoft Online Directory Services? I see about 2 or 3 hands. So a brief description of what they do. Essentially, Microsoft Online Directory Services enables you to sync your on-premise Active Directory data into the cloud. So this data is in turn consumed by services such as Intune or Office 365. And what this enables you is if you have Active Directory Federation services set up, and you can enable single sign-on. So from an end user perspective, they don't have to remember any server URLs. All they need to provide when they want to enroll their device is their email ID and their password, and they're good to go. So a key takeaway here is in order for this synchronization to happen, this AD data, you'll have to work with your Active Directory team to ensure that you run directory sync. And if you want to enable single sign-on in your environment, you have to set up ADFS 2.0. And the link provided here gives you more information on how to do both. From the config manager standpoint, we did a user discovery for all users in the Microsoft Active Directory, the corporate forest. In your case, this depends on how widely you want to bring your own device, or how widely you want to open device enrollment in your company. We set up a DNS redirection for this URL, specifically enterpriseenrollment.microsoft.com, and we redirected this to go to the Intune environment. And the Intune environment, it goes to the production environment. It's called manage.microsoft.com. So why this is critical is essentially this is coded into the Windows Phone 8 in the software operating system itself. So when you go in and try and enroll and sign up with your email address and your password, it's hard-coded in a fashion that it extracts your company name information, your publicly available domain information, and tries to go to that enterprise enrollment that your domain automatically tries to redirect to that environment. So for example, if you were working for Contoso and your email address was arun@contoso.com or david@contoso.com, it would automatically get redirected to enterpriseenrollment.contoso.com. So you would have to create a DNS redirection for the same in order for a user experience. Otherwise, your users would get a failure message, and then they would have to go in and manually enter the URL to go to. From a device perspective, we spoke about in the wizard I showed you that there's a code signing certificate required for Windows Phone 8. This has to be a VeriSign certificate. So you'll have to work with your application or security team who controls the certificates in your environment in order to get this generated. From the Windows, Windows RT prerequisites are the Windows RT code signing certificate and the side loading key. The side loading key can be purchased from the Volume License Center. For the iOS, the Apple Push Notification Certificate, we talked about this. That's a pretty straightforward process for generating the request from the Config Manager console itself. So the key takeaway that we want to share with you, unless you're the jack of all trades in your company, you're going to have to work with other teams. Namely, for the directory sync and Active Directory Federation services, you're going to have to work with your AD team. For the VeriSign certificate, you're going to have to work with your application team. And in order to determine what policies should be enforced on the end user's devices, you're going to have to work with your security team. So this, we're next going to talk about when we set up the proof of concept environment initially, how was it set up, and what are some of the key factors that we did. So the line on the left, essentially the line separates the Microsoft on-premise infrastructure and the cloud infrastructure, where our first step was we built the config manager primary site, where this was a standalone primary site, all virtual, which was essentially we were just trying to proof of concept and understand what are the requirements, how do we even go about doing this at a larger scale. We did user discovery like we talked about for the entire Microsoft corporate forest. We worked with the MS-ODS team to get the Microsoft IT tenant provision for Intune. And we set up the DNS redirection. And then we set up the Intune subscription and connector role. And like I said, since this is a flat hierarchy, we set it up on a primary site. And then we applied the device-specific certificates, like the Windows Phone 8, Windows RT, iOS certificate. So one key thing to remember is you can set up your Intune connector without enabling any devices. You can go in and you can set up your Intune connector, sync your users, make sure they're licensed, and you can come back at a later point in time if you don't have the prerequisites ready. You can come back at a later time, open the wizard, and enable the checkpoints, to enable the checkbox to start enabling devices. But at that point, you will require this device-specific prerequisites. And this is an overview of our actual production infrastructure. So we have about 5 primary sites for managing PCs. So at Microsoft, we have approximately 300,000 PCs. And the primary sites are all geographically located according to the density of population of our users. So we built one of the decisions we took based on our learning is we're going to build a dedicated primary site for managing devices. And the decision points that went behind that was essentially we have 300,000 clients, we have 300,000 PCs, so our primary sites are already pretty close to the limit that they can support. In addition to that, we have about 98,000 full-time employees at Microsoft, 82,000 vendors, and from the Exchange discovery, we have an Exchange connector set up in our config manager environment. We discovered that we have close to 125,000 devices that are accessing our corporate data. So in order to enable and to kind of build for the future, we decided to have a dedicated primary site for our Intune environment, or for our mobile device management. So with this, we'll do a quick demo of what really happens behind the scenes when you do a cloud user sync. So this is the console that we talked about, the config manager console. We'll just take a quick look and see. We see over here that the collection we're targeting, the user collection is already set up to hybrid users. There is an additional log. There are additional components and logs to monitor as part of the Windows Intune, the unified device management. One of the logs, the main logs to look at for the user licensing perspective, is called the cloud user sync log. And this log will give you an idea on when the last cloud user sync occurred. It occurs every 5 minutes, and like how many users, like if any net new users got added to the collection, they would show up here. It would log the information that net new users got licensed and files got generated and files got processed accordingly for that. Behind the scenes, what's really happening is we can look you can also track which users are licensed from the user disk table in the config manager database. Any idea on what the GUIDs here mean? Any volunteers? So the GUIDs essentially signify that a user is licensed to use to enroll their device. They're a part of the collection that is being synced to Windows Intune. So let's do a small test. What we'll do is we'll add a couple of users and we'll remove a couple of users and see how things change in the database. So this was the collection that is being used. Go back to our user collection, properties. So I am going to remove test 3 and test 4, and let's check if they have enrolled. Yes, they have valid GUIDs over here. So delete them. And I'm going to add an additional user. Console, let's see if it refreshes. It was fast. So the last sync was 2 minutes ago, so we have 3 more minutes to go. So why don't we get back to the presentation, and I will show you, we'll actually share what really happens to those GUIDs when things change, and then we'll come back and look if they actually happened in the demo environment. So this is just a backup slide that I had because of all the network issues that we've been having, which talks about the same thing that we have, what log to monitor and what information it provides. So the Cloud User ID field is essentially what you need to track to identify which users are licensed to use, to enroll their devices. And the information null essentially signifies that by default this is null for all users till they're a member of that collection. This means that the user is not licensed to enroll their device. The all zeros essentially means that the user was previously licensed but got removed from that collection. And the GUID information, the non-zero GUIDs, indicate that the user is actually licensed to enroll their device. So from our recommendation, from our experience, we learned that, okay, there are now additional components for us to monitor. There's the Cloud User Sync that we talked about, which is the User Collection Config Manager. Then there are a couple of other components that we identified were, one is the DMP Uploader, which uploads the policy changes from Config Manager into Intune. And DMP Downloader, pretty obvious sounding name, that it's downloading the policy changes from Intune to Config Manager. So some of the recommendations we have specifically for the user collection in Config Manager that we did was we set up Delta user discovery and fast collections so that users would get licensed as soon as they got in the collection. There wasn't a big delay in that process. The sync frequency between the on-premise infrastructure and Intune is every 5 minutes. This is for the Cloud User Sync. And we just left it alone. We didn't mess with it. We left it at the default. And we recommend that you do the same. We developed some custom reports specifically for the user license status. And this was to address the scenarios so that a user would know when they are actually eligible to enroll their devices. It's not that they contact somebody in the hierarchy and then they, as soon as they send the email, they're assuming that they're now eligible to enroll their devices. With this report, they can go in and check what the current status is. Are they actually are they actually licensed to, as part of the collection to be able to enroll their device? So let's see if our sync is done. I think this should happen any minute now. So we're at 3:09. There we go. So it removed the 2 users that we added. right? There we go. So you see a summary of what happened here. So essentially, it identified that it had to remove 2 users from the collection. So they're no longer licensed. And it added 3 net new users into the collection. So let's check the database status and see what their cloud user ID is now. So I believe we removed test 3 and test 4 users. We removed them from the collection. So their GUID should change to all zeros. And then we should see a license for the other ones. Yep. So test 3 and test 4, their GUIDs have changed to all zeros. And we added test 5 and test 6. And you can see that now they have a valid cloud user ID, and these users can enroll their devices. So with this, I hand over to Karthik to talk about device enrollment and company portal.
Thanks, Arun. Now we know how to set up the Intune subscription as well as the connector. So with the technology supporting us at the back end, we set up a couple of setups and steps to follow to have the enrollment going as well as for the company portal ready for the users. So before we get into the actual enrollment and actual company portal deployment, I would like to share some of the metrics during the proof of concept or during our dogfood time frame. So we had around 140 Windows Phone 8 devices enrolled and 35 Winarchi device enrolled. And around 9 line of business applications published to company portal and 12 LOB apps published for Windows RT. We also deep linked 1 app for Windows Phone 8 to MS Store, Microsoft Store, and 2 deep linked apps for Windows RT. Deep link is a feature for modern apps. Basically, if you publish a URL or a link in the configuration manager, and that will be published into the company portal, and users will use the link and click onto the link, which will take them directly to Microsoft Store and get the app downloaded and installed, so that we don't have to host the content as well as don't have to manage the different versions of the same app. And our rollout plan is to go around 24,000 Windows Phone 8 devices and 19,000 Winarchi devices during the first phase, and keep going wider and wider till we reach the total mobile population, so population in Microsoft IT. So let's see what was our primary objective and how we implemented and what are the key benefits that we achieved over that. As with any enterprise network, one of the primary objectives we had was the easy user installation. So we want users to enroll their devices easily as well as without entering much information in there during the enrollment time. So they don't have to type in a URL or a server name or something to go through the enrollment process. And one other key objective was to seamlessly install the company portal after the enrollment. We achieved this in different ways. We're going to talk about that very soon. And also get the first-hand user experience from the users whenever they see whenever they want to share some feedback. For that, we created a distribution list and got all their feedback and collected those feedback and drive some changes into the product itself. So with these objectives in mind, and also the technology supporting us, we did some process-oriented implementation. First, we developed a lot of enrollment guides for different platforms. For like iOS, Windows Phone 8, and Windows RT devices, we developed different enrollment guides and sent mail communication to users with all these instructions for a set of users for the proof of concept. And as I told before, we collected all the feedback through the DL and then drove the changes in the product. So how it helped us and what are the things that helped us to achieve these goals? First, Arun mentioned the single sign-on, which is available in Windows Intune Cloud Service, which helped us to achieve the seamless installation or enrollment. Users didn't have to go through or remember a different user ID and password. They just have to remember their corp credentials or corp email address and the corp password to enroll their device. And the email notification and the enrollment guides were very elaborate, as well as with a graphical screenshot, so they can easily follow through these guides and enroll their device. Along with that, we already set the company portal as a deployment in Config Manager and deployed to all users collection, which Arun mentioned in the subscription page. So as soon as the enrollment is done, company portal gets installed within a few seconds. So all this process, we were a little bit skeptical that how long this entire process is going to take. Talking to Intune, getting your device enrolled, and getting the company portal downloaded and installed on the device. It actually took less than a minute and get our users back into the job and be productive immediately, and then go to the company portal and get their apps installed immediately. And our users were really happy about the actual end-to-end process of enrollment and the company portal. With that, we are going to show a small demo on the Windows Phone 8 enrollment and how the company portal looks like. For that, the actual management agent is built in with the Windows Phone 8. We just have to tap onto that and then use this setting to enroll the device. The agent is actually on the settings and under company apps. When users go there, they can see a button called Add Account, and they have to type in the UPN. Generally, it's going to be their alias at thecompany.com. Here, since it's our test environment, we are going to give the test credential here. And in Microsoft, when MSIT, we ask the users to type in their CorpNet email address and corp password. And once they click on sign in, the device is going to talk to the Intune service and then get the connection to the server and get all the certificates and enroll the device. This is a screen which is only applicable to the lab because it's a test environment. In Microsoft IT during the production dogfooding time, users didn't have to enter this information at all. So at this time, it's trying to talk to the Intune service to get the device enrolled. And you could see the progress at the top of the screen. And once the enrollment is done, we can see the status getting changed to we have found them. And this is the screen that shows that the device is enrolled. Also the checkbox, which means that the company portal will get installed automatically at the back end. So now the company portal should be in one of the in the application list as one of the apps. Yep, right there. So the users have to click onto the company portal and enter the credential again to connect to the Intune service where the apps are already published in. And we have got all the apps around the 9 apps for Windows Phone 8 are already published in Configuration Manager. There is nothing that we did on the Intune side, and the entire administration has happened on the Config Manager side, like a regular app deployment. So these are the apps and the categories. One of the categories we had is Campus Life. So we have all the apps categorized according to the Microsoft IT standards. We're going to talk about that process also shortly. Okay. If you click onto the Campus Life, you can see what are all the apps categorized under that particular category. And users can install that by clicking onto any of the apps. Okay. Now, if you go back to the main screen, you can see MS Give already installed. Let's switch back to the presentation, and we talk about how we did this at the back end. This is the screenshot, just in case there is any network failure for the presentation. Okay. So first of all, we worked with our app provisioning team to start with to get the signing process ready, because all apps need to be signed for an enterprise publishing. We have a separate signing team to get any app for Windows Phone 8 or as well as Windows 8 desktops. So we worked with them to get that process formulated. Second, we signed all the apps that need to be published as well as the company portal that we just showed. We signed all of them together. And we categorized all the apps according to the Microsoft IT standards so that they won't show up in one particular main category called all. So users can easily go to a specific category and find their apps easily. And this can be done in Config Manager itself. There is a facility to categorize the apps in the admin console. And also, we deployed all these apps to the users collection, the main user collection that we used for Cloud User Sync that Arun showed up. Because we want to have all these apps ready beforehand and have these policies replicated to Windows Intune and be ready so that as soon as the users finish their enrollment, they get the policies downloaded as well as the apps will be ready in their company portal. At last, this is an interesting scenario that we got. One of our app teams, they said they want one particular app to be shown in the company portal only to few users because of some confidentiality reasons. So we came up with this solution of finding those users or doing the discovery, adding the users into a security group, and discover that security group in Configuration Manager and created a collection for that security group. And 4 or 5 users in that security group were part of that collection. And we deployed that particular app to that collection. So the rest of the users, when they go to the company portal, they won't see that app except those 4 or 5 users in that security group. So you may want to consider such kind of solutions for such scenarios. So let's see some of the lessons learned. So in Microsoft IT, there are users, they have user accounts in multiple domains. But UPN is just UPN. It's going to be common, your alias at yourcompany.com. So we had this multiple duplicate UPNs in different domains. So when we did the Cloud User Sync, at the time we had some Cloud User Sync failure. This is a one-off scenario for Microsoft IT. You may not be seeing the same scenario in your environment. But we identified those users and excluded them through a collection. Second, this is on rare occasions we wanted to do some check on enrollment failures, but there are no client logs for the Windows Phone 8. But there are some back-end logs at the Intune side, which was very useful for troubleshooting. After the enrollment is done, when the users are going through the company portal, there were a lot of questions asked by users, like how to use company portal, how to do the enrollment, and what are these problems they have seen. So these repeated set of questions were asked by the users, so we had to create some guides. We called it as smart guides to have all these frequently asked questions documented and share them across users so they can be well prepared of the issues and the common problems they can expect. And for some of the portal issues, we were able to troubleshoot the portal issues by going to the company portal, and there is a setting to send logs through email. So we use that feature to collect logs and then troubleshoot and then also drive some changes to the product too. And one other interesting scenario is if users uninstall the portal and want to get the portal back on demand, There is no way to do that. They have to do the re-enrollment again back because the enrollment and the company portal is tied up together very much. So they can go through the enrollment process to get the company portal back again. With that, let's see what are the things that we did for Windows RT. So in Microsoft, suddenly we saw a surge of my RT device because we got Surface devices into Microsoft environment. So we wanted to leverage the new surge, the new influx of Surface devices, and want to enroll those devices too. For that, there is no separate license required for Windows RT device. It's the entire licensing process is based on user. So if a user is licensed, a user can enroll up to 5 devices. It can be any device, iOS, Windows RT, or Windows Phone 8, any type of device. So we don't have to go through another set of licensing or a cloud user sync for RT. And as Arun mentioned, there is a side-loading key that is required for app installation. That side-loading key we have to purchase from the volume licensing and have to punch it in the subscription page. And this side-loading key will be used at the time of enrollment. So whenever the enrollment happens, a side-loading key will be procured at the time. And the user experience for enrollment between Windows RT and Windows Phone 8, there is no much difference. The experience is similar, except the UI differences. The experience is pretty much similar. And generally, the company portal can be retrieved from Microsoft Store. You can go to Microsoft Store and get the company portal for Windows RT. During the time of dogfooding time, we had to side-load the company portal to RT devices.
So I had one question on the side-loading key. So is the side-loading key a one-time thing, or does it, if I unenroll and re-enroll my device, do I have to use a net new side-loading key?
Yes, the side-loading key will be removed when you uninstall or unenroll. So when you re-enroll, another key will be used at the time.
So don't be testing this too much in your environment, is the takeaway.
Yep.
You want to be careful with the number of side-loading keys that you use in your environment.
Okay. That's a good point. Let's see the company portal publishing aspect of the process. We used the regular Microsoft root CA certificate as part of the subscription page, what Arun showed up in his demo. The reason is our developers developed the app with a lot of child certificate under the main root CA certificate. We cannot have this child certificates on all the devices, especially on RT, which is not domain joined. So we had to have a separate way to have all these apps certified as well as all the certificate trusted. So what we did is we used the main root certificate and have that punched into the subscription page, and automatically that certificate got registered in all the devices. So any application that got signed by any of the child certificates automatically got trusted. I'm going to show that in the demo where exactly it registered and where you can see how the certificate looks like. And we encourage, in Microsoft, we encourage our developers to develop apps that is compatible between different architectures. So our developers have developed many modern apps that are compatible between RT as well as Windows 8. So we used the same set of modern apps for dogfooding and deployed those for RT devices. And I will show one of the apps how that looks like. And also, as I mentioned before, we deep linked a couple of apps from MS Store for RT devices. Let's see the certificate enrollment as well as and what happens on the client side where it goes and registers, as well as I'll show one of the apps how it looks like. Before we go into any of this, this is how the company portal for Windows RT looks like. You can see all the apps and the categories and also the devices that are already enrolled for this user. Okay. Now, let's see. Before that, I wanted to show the subscription page to show where we actually entered the certificate. So in the console, under the Intune subscription, go to the properties. Under Windows RT, the code signing certificate, if you have the one common code signing certificate that's used for all the apps, you can enter that here. And if it is a main root certificate, we entered that here as one of the certificates as the C certificate file here. So I'll open up an app and show you how that certificate looks like. This is one of the LOB apps that we have. As you can see, this app is ready for any CPU. It's coded for ready for any architecture. And the certificate looks like, with the child certificate, will look like this, the Microsoft internal use only certificate. And if we view the certificate, this is the root from where the actual certificate chain came from. So we actually exported this main root certificate and then punched it into the Intune subscription page, which automatically registered on all the RT devices. Let's see an RT device where exactly it gets stored after the enrollment. So it directly goes into the root certification authorities and then go into here. This is the main certificate that which went on the, which we configured on the console, will get registered here. And also with the enrollment, there is a key that there is a policy to trust all the apps that comes automatically and gets as registered as a policy. This is one of the policy. Windows, under policies, under APPX, allow all trusted apps, which becomes 1. Okay. And I would also like to show the side loading information also, just to explain. It's under SIMV2 MDM, and that's the namespace. And if you go under that, the side loader, you can see the key already registered in the WMI. It's still getting it. So this is the key that got registered and procured from the side loading key bunch that we have already in the console. Okay. So the key takeaway from this is work with your app provisioning team, get the code signing process ready, and get the code signing certificate and punch that in the subscription page, and RT devices will be ready for modern app deployment. Okay. And this is the same screen that I showed in the console. So the lessons learned for Windows RT are, as Arun asked before, every re-enrollment of RT device uses one side loading key. And company portal user experience is different from Windows Phone 8 company portal because it's more than app. As I showed you, it has all the devices that are already enrolled under the user, which is not there in Windows Phone 8. So it's more than the regular apps in the company portal. So if user initiates any unenrollment on the local RT device, it doesn't remove the company portal. It keeps the company portal as is because of the same reasons that it's more than for apps. And there are back-end Intune logs for enrollment as well as company portal troubleshooting if you want. And generally, if there is any change that we push that goes on the device and gets evaluated once in a day at 3 a.m. during the maintenance window time. So the maximum that you can expect, the delay could be like a 24 hours delay. Just have that education, have the users educated with that, as well as your help desk support team educated with that in case if they get any such kind of calls. Okay, there are like three major pillars for modern device management. One is inventory, and second one is the app distribution, which we saw just now, and the third one is settings management, which is for the policies. So whenever a modern device, a user's personal device, when we connect them to a CorpNet, for any kind of an enterprise, we want to have the devices secured, protected, as well as have them enforced with your corporate policies. So with that in mind, we set up certain goals for enforcing the policies. We wanted to safeguard the device and also protect because of the corporate data we have in there, like apps and everything. And also, the device can get settings from multiple areas, from Exchange as well as from Configuration Manager. So you have to ensure that we are not annoying the users by setting up different settings or conflicting settings on these devices. With these goals, we went through a series of meetings with different teams. First, we talked to our Exchange team and also talked to our security team who enforces the policies on all the devices, and had meetings thoroughly to have a common point to have the settings that we want to set on all these devices. So you may want to work with these teams or the respective teams to get these policies defined. So once we have these policies defined that are shown on the right side, let's see what are the steps we took to really apply these policies on the devices. First, there is a new attribute or a new column in System Disk called Agent Edition, which can tell you what are all the devices that are enrolled by Windows Intune. We were trying to find out how to identify these devices because we have this big set of 300,000 desktops along with these new enrolled devices. So that was one of the challenges that we had, but we could able to easily identify these enrolled devices using Agent Edition. And this is a numerical value, so there are that value for iOS and Windows Phone 8 and Windows RT are different, so you can easily identify the devices. We created collections with this property and created a password protection policy as well as encryption policy and applied through CIs and baselines. One important point there is we have to enforce the setting when you create CI and baseline, which I will show in the next demo. Without enforcement, you will not be able to enforce these policies. Otherwise, these policies will be monitored for compliance, whether these devices are compliant for the policies. If you want to enforce, you have to select a particular checkbox, which I'll mention in my demo. Okay. Just to give a glance of what are all the settings that we set for on Windows Phone 8 and Windows RT devices, we have some password strength, password policies as well as encryption policies. Okay. So the policies can be set as settings management, formerly DCM. So let me show you an example of a Windows Phone 8 policy. So these are the rules. These are the rules that we set for Windows Phone 8, and we worked with the respective team to define these settings. It may differ, or we suggest you to go with those teams and then talk to them and find out those settings and set these settings accordingly. This is totally suitable for our environment and for our security team. Okay, let's see how to create these policies. Right-click and go for a create configuration item. Let me see, Windows Phone 8 policy. Select the platform that you want to use, mobile device. Next. And I'm going to select password as well as encryption. And once you select those settings, only password and encryption-based settings will be shown in the next screen. So let's say, for example, 2, or no, 2 is minimum, I think. 4 is minimum, so let's say 5. Okay. And the password expiration days for 60 days. Right. And this is the setting that I mentioned, remediate non-compliant settings. That's important to enforce the settings. And the encryption, storage encryption is not possible, so we'll go with the file encryption on. And again, remediate non-compliant settings. Next. And you can select the platform accordingly. Even if you select all the platform here, it's going to come back and say what are all the actual platforms that are supported, not supported for these settings. So you can at least understand what other devices can be applied for these policies. Next, next. And it's going to create the CI, and then we have to create a baseline and deploy that. I'm going to show one of the baselines that we already have, because baseline creation is pretty simple. Create a baseline and add that CI that you created before, and then you can deploy it. Right-click the actual baseline that you created, and do a deploy. This is the setting that I mentioned again, that you have to select the remediate in both places to enforce the setting, and select the collection. Let me show the collection hierarchy that we set. Under the root, we have created the collections based on different hierarchy, as I mentioned before. So RT devices will be here, and the Windows Phone 8 devices will be separately, will be in a separate collection. And you can have run this every 3 days. And the policies will be enforced, and make sure these devices are compliant to these policies every 3 days. This is going to be the screenshot of how to create CIs and baselines. Let's see the next important point, which is device retirement. We had a specific business requirement from our security team as well as our internal app provisioning team, that what if a user leaves the company and still have this enrollment going on the device? So we wanted to go through the proper retirement process for an employee who leaves the company. So we tested the retirement process to understand what are the things that's going to happen. So I'll summarize what are the things that are going to happen for a wipe action and a retire action. So on a Windows Phone 8, when a wipe action is initiated from the console, it's going to bring back the device to the factory default. But on a Windows RT device, it's going to remove the mail connection to your Corp Net Exchange. And for the retirement, Windows Phone 8, on a Windows Phone 8 device, it's going to unenroll the device from the service, as well as remove the company portal and the policies that we set, and also remove the apps. Basically, it's going to bring the device back to the state where it was before the enrollment. And on RT, the device will get unenrolled from the service, and also all the side-loaded LOB apps will not run on the RT device from then. So how we implemented that, after our dogfooding effort, we did a bulk retirement on all these devices to have these devices ready for production. And the device records automatically deleted from the CM after the retirement. And one other important point is we don't want to accidentally also wipe or retire an executive phone. And I'm sure that you wouldn't want that too. So we are working, and we already defined an RBAC role to restrict the access on the console to only certain users. Basically, with this RBAC role, only few users will be able to see that option of wipe and retire in the console. The rest of the admins will not be able to see that when they right-click on a device. Okay. Next piece is the Unified Device Management Reports, which is very important for Microsoft as well as for any enterprise. First, app installation report. Oftentimes we are asked like, how are we going to see this app installation status? Whether is there an SSRS report or is there any kind of a special report that we have to run? Unified Device Management has a bunch of reports, out-of-box reports in the Config Manager product itself. So it's similar to app installation reports as well as the ICM, the in-console monitoring, will tell you all the apps that are installed and failed as well as in progress too. Similarly, for any kind of a policy that we set, you can see whether that policy is applied, failed, or even remediated in the reports. And the other one important thing is the custom report that we developed is for the user licensing. Like one example is one user sent his user ID to the manager to get participated into the dog fooding. And the moment he sent that user ID to this manager, he started trying the enrollment. Because it takes some time we have to get the user ID, put it in the collection, and this cloud sync has to happen to get the license. So we wanted to have one kind of the custom report so users can go and check whether they are licensed and ready to start the enrollment. So we created this custom report using the same user list table with the cloud sync GUID. If that GUID presents, then the users are ready for enrollment. So we provided this custom report to users. And this is the in-console monitoring that shows whether the device is compliant for a particular policy, for a particular baseline. So you can as well go to the console itself and check all the status right away. With that, I'm going to call Arun to go over the best practices that we identified in this experience.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, Karthik. So we wanted to share some of our learnings and the actions that we took, and we believe that these actions are applicable even in your environment. So the first one was, it's a new experience for users. It's a paradigm shift not only for the IT admin, it's a paradigm shift for end users. While we're enrolling PCs, we're installing our agent on the PCs, users do not know. But the enrolling a device, it's a user-initiated process. And as you saw from Karthik's explanation, the process differs so much from Windows Phone 8 and Windows RT, and so on. So as part of this, we went through and we ensured that we educated our end users when they were going to enroll. We created an enrollment guide with, the smart guide with detailed steps on how to enroll each kind of device. The other item that we ensured, and I'm sure you want to do as well, that your help desk is not overwhelmed just because you opened the floodgates to have users enroll their devices. So as part of that, we created support documentation and training for help desk. We will share some of this documentation. We will publish this in future blog posts that you can possibly take and customize according to your environment as well. The common escalations from users, we had a support DL, and we started getting the same list of complaints from users. And based on that, we were able to put together a shared FAQ document and publish it. So if net new users started enrolling their devices, they could refer to that FAQ documentation first before they started escalating to us or started contacting help desk. And we recommend that you do the same thing so that you can focus on your day job. Providing a status on a unified device management. So there's a lot of interest from our executives, from our security folks, from our individual users on trying to understand device management, trying to understand what applications are deployed, trying to understand if a user is, how many users are enrolled for device management, trying to understand how settings management is working, like how good are the settings enforced on all the devices. So we're working on a custom dashboard using the Config Manager database to bring visibility to this. And this is another item to watch out for in the very near future, where we will be publishing a blog post with more information on this dashboard. If you want to personally reach out to me, after this meeting, we'll share my email address, and feel free to reach out to me, and when this is ready, we'll share the information with you. So our session objectives, and a quick recap, our objective was to share our story, show how we did it, and show how easy it is for you to do it in your environment, for deploying applications, deploying policies, and being able to just measure, report on how users are using device management. So we'd really love it if you went forward today or whenever you get back at the office and implemented this, like at the very least at a proof of concept, and gave us feedback on how this is working in your environment. So with this, we're ready for questions.
Hi, Son?
Go ahead.
Yeah, if an environment has already a Windows Intune set up with devices enrolled, is it possible then to link that with SCCM? Or does SCCM have to be set up and linked before users start enrolling their devices?
So your question is, you already have devices enrolled to Intune, and then you have config manager environment come in, and you set up what will happen to the devices.
Yes.
Yes. So that's a great question. We haven't necessarily tested that scenario, but I can get back to you on that. But one thing I can tell you is when you set up the config manager Intune subscription, config manager becomes the superseding authority for managing your devices. So I believe you might have to re-enroll the device, unenroll and re-enroll the device, but I'll have to check on that.
Okay, and then a second question is, if I have laptops for Salesforce, they come into the office maybe once a quarter, and they're enrolled in Intune, what's going to happen when they come on site and get discovered by SCCM with auto client push deployment setup?
Do you want to take that?
I think with in the previous build, but in the new build, I think only one client can coexist at the time.
Okay, so it'll see the Intune client installed and just skip?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you for your time. And a quick reminder before I end, please fill out the survey. It's like great feedback for us, and keep improving.